Hello and welcome to another Switzer CEO Masterclass. And today we're talking to Maurie Stang from a company called Vectus Biosystems. Now this is not a recommendation in any way for the company, but it's an opportunity for you to understand what's going on in the company and what the potential for the company might be. So let's cross to Maurie Stang right now. Thanks for joining us, Maurie.
Thanks again for having me.
So Maurie, can you give us an overview of Vectus Biosystem? Tell us about the business.
Yeah, so Vectus Biosystems was developed around the insight of Professor Karen Duggan, who is an expert in VIP, which is a peptide that's in all our bodies. But her remarkable insight was that it was well known in the science that as the level of VIP goes down, so you lead towards organ failure. But no one understood that it was not just a marker, but in fact a regulator. So if you replace the VIP, you indeed have the potential for a therapeutic agent, which turned out to be the case. Vectus is very much a drug discovery company. We have a library of over 1,000 compounds, and VB0004 is now in human clinical trials in Victoria.
Right, yeah. Well, one of the questions I've got here, which you really haven't touched on directly in that answer, is around fibrosis. So this peptide you're talking about and fibrosis, I presume there's a significant link.
Absolutely. So fibrosis represents about 40% of mortality in the world. And of course, it's very much focused on heart disease, kidney disease, liver disease, and cardiac disease. So the remarkable thing is that the VB0004, our lead candidate, is no longer a peptide. It's a small molecule, which means it's one pill a day. And it's also a transformational agent. So by that, we mean that we're not just slowing down disease progression, and in this case, fibrosis, but we're in fact reversing it. And to our knowledge, there is no one in the world that has been successful at clinically reversing fibrosis to any significant degree.
Okay, so give us an example so people who are listening to this understand precisely what might happen if this molecule, which I presume ends up being in a pill, which people take once a day, what kind of repair job will it do?
Okay, so let's talk about 4 applications. The first one is it lowers blood pressure, and that's the high systolic blood pressure, by functional changes. That means it's just not suppressing something, it's taking tissue that is otherwise not functional and taking it back to a more elastic and functional tissue. So your blood pressure goes down and your cardiovascular health goes up. An equally dramatic example is people with kidney disease, renal disease. And we see that there is potential for people not to regress onto dialysis, but to be restored to a functional and socially and financially way improved quality of life. What's in the news a lot today is long COVID and the concern about lung damage, particularly in the acute cases. And whilst we haven't begun the work, it seems to be very logical that we could indeed reverse the fibrotic damage, the scarring damage, in other words, and restore healthier function. These are the biggest franchises in the world, and I'm pleased to say that Australia leads the world.
Just listening to you, Maurie, it seems to me that fibrosis, and obviously you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like fibrosis seems like the consequence of most of us living our lives ridiculously badly and or having genetic issues that leave us more exposed. And what your product is trying to do is reverse those problems, so the deterioration that fibrosis brings can be slowed down, I guess, in the first instance, and reversed in the best case scenario?
Yes, so that's what I mean by a transformational agent. It is our objective to see real and measurable and functional changes. So if you think about the aorta as a hose, if you like, if it becomes rigid, blood pressure goes up and your functional activity deteriorates. As we restore that to a more elastic, a more natural state, you see a multitude of improvements. And a very dramatic example of that is the work we've looked into in black lung and occupational diseases such as asbestosis. And here, patients have a terrible prognosis. And we look to not only arrest the deterioration, because once fibrosis sets in, it often becomes self-fulfilling, but indeed to go some of the way to repair that damage. And probably the most dramatic example is what's called NASH and NASH liver disease, where significant prevalence of hepatitis is in the Asian population. And whilst there's new wonder drugs that stop the virus, they don't stop the deterioration of the liver. And so we set out to complement those drugs by stopping disease progression and, in fact, reversing it. So I said at the outset, this represents about 40% of mortality in the world. And today we're in clinical trials down in Melbourne. We're getting towards the end of the first phase. That is the single ascending dose. We've announced to the market that we're in conversations with pharmaceutical companies who are well known and well regarded. And many of those have expressed a highly complimentary view, not only of our technology, but indeed of our intellectual property. So we have had patent attorneys embedded since the first day of discovery. And I think as a biotech in Australia, if you're not world competitive, you really shouldn't be in the race.
We often hear, you know, and most of us are inexperienced in the world of biotech and whatever, but okay, you're going through trials in Melbourne. If you pass those trials, we then take it to, you know, the Big Apple, namely the US Fed and Drug Administration testing?
Look, a lot of American companies, Peter, are coming here to do their testing. The US, you know, Australia is a tier 1 country and it's recognised as such, and there's only a handful in the world. So it's not so much about us going to the FDA, that would be one or more of our pharmaceutical partners, but the work that's done here is world-class. And from our point of view, the inflection in value of biotech companies traditionally happens around this phase 1 work. I've had many large pharma companies say to me, very impressive, we're very interested in this, but which of our drug development programs do you want us to drop to put yours in? And our answer is, you know, the logical time is when the phase 1 safety trials demonstrates that you're not going to get knocked out on a safety basis. And so I'm pleased to say that, you know, we are at that inflection point, and we're also not a one-trick pony. We've got VB0004, which is our cardiovascular lead, but we've got multiple other compounds coming through our discovery program. And of course, it may well be that we find more than one partner for different franchises.
All right, so being a stock market enthusiast, I couldn't help myself but look at the performance of the stock. And on a year-to-date basis, you're up nicely, but the last 6 months you're down. What do you think is behind the negativity? Are you seen as being a tech company? Because tech companies are certainly copped it over that period of time.
Yeah, look, clearly the market is looking for direction and is quite nervous. But in our case, I think it's a matter of It's very binary. If we're successful, and to date we have been, in our human trials, there's going to be an inflection. Our market cap is below that of the traditional interest of the institutions at 150 million plus. And we're not making any predictions, but the data shows that if we are successful in phase one, there is likely an increase in our valuation significantly beyond that level. So it's simply a matter of there aren't many sellers, and the market is sitting on the sidelines during a turbulent time. But our belief is that Vectus is a standout globally, and we believe that it will be recognised going forward.
Okay. Is there anything else a potential investor should know about the company?
Look, two things. Number one, there is significant unmet needs out there in fibrosis. We are hoping to be first in class, which means reimbursement will be significantly higher than generic reimbursement. And secondly, we are one of the only companies I'm aware of that has successfully taken a peptide into a small molecule. And this is a technology we have in-house. And if you can think about the real world applications, people do not want to inject themselves daily. They want to take a pill. So I think we're well placed, and our shareholder base are people that really have deep faith in the company. And I think that will be proven out.
Well done. I hope things work out well, not only for the company, but it could be a good export earner for the country as well. So thanks for joining us.
Peter, thank you very much.
And that was Maurie Stang of Vectus Biosystems. Now remember, this is not a recommendation, it's just a chance for you to get to understand a company, a micro or small cap company, which is often not covered by mainstream press. But it's a chance for you to get an idea of what's going on in this listed company. Thanks for joining us.